Fatiha for Marhuma Batul by Kareem, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Elders, scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Taqabbalallahu a'maluna wa a'malukum, inshallah. In these holy nights, may Allah accept your a'mal. May Allah accept your efforts in trying to seek proximity towards Him. We begin tonight's session, our last Q&A session before entering the holy month of Ramadan. Of course, these are the final remaining days and nights of the month of Sha'ban. And of course, these nights are now very, very important, acting as a precursor towards the month of Ramadan. We try and do as many amals as possible before entering the month of Ramadan. And of course, if I were to remind each and every one of us the discussions we've been having with regards to the introduction and how we should prepare for the month of Ramadan, we prepare from now the month of Sha'ban. We try and create small changes, and small changes create a heavy effect in our lives. Small changes create big effects in our lives, especially when it is acted upon and focused on mindfully in the month of Ramadan. So of course, as I said, this is our final Q&A session before entering the month of Ramadan, and we have a few questions, mostly with regards to the rules of fasting and the laws of fasting. So if any of you have any questions, please do take part in the discussion. I do encourage interactive discussions. I don't want this to be a monologue. It's very much preferable if it's a dialogue between you and I. We did have a few questions left over from the previous sessions. There's one very interesting question regarding Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, in particular one of his statements in Dua Qumail. The question is, so we say that the Ahl al-Bayt wish everyone well and make dua for them even if they are bad-mannered, and wish in Dua Qumail we come across the line, whoever wishes bad for me, wish this bad for them, and whoever wants to destroy me, destroy them. Does this not contribute the Imam's akhlaq? Or does this not, okay, there's a conflict between the Imam's akhlaq and his lines within this dua. Very interesting. I believe the line is towards the end of Dua Qumail, wherein Imam Ali alayhi salam says, وَمَنْ Allahumma وَمَنْ أَرَادَنِي بِسُوءٍ فَأَرِدْهُ وَمَنْ كَادَنِي فَكِدْهُ فَمَنْ كَادَنِي فَكِدْهُ, something along those lines, where the Imam alayhi salam says, Ya Allah, when you come across certain individuals who wish bad for me, then let this go against them. Let plan bad things for them. وَمَنْ كَادَنِي فَكِدْهُ, and whoever desires evil for me, then desire evil for them as well. It's a very interesting statement. First and foremost, it's very, very important for us to keep in mind that it's very easy, it's very simple to take things out of context, especially the lines of the A'imma alayhim salam in many of the du'as that they have left and contributed for us to benefit from. It's very easy to take lines from certain du'as and prove certain aspects of our aqidah without taking the whole dua into consideration, or even the statements before and the statements after. I've seen many people do this, where they take, for example, certain aspects of our aqidah and trying to prove that it is a manifestation of shirk, it is a manifestation of bid'ah by taking certain lines from Sahifa Sajjadiyah, not knowing that what we believe in is also proven in other du'as from Sahifa Sajjadiyah. So it's very interesting how things work in this way. It's very easy to take things out of context. What would be ideal is if you were to take these lines of Imam Ali alayhi salam and try and compare it to his akhlaq, as the question beautifully said, try and compare it to his akhlaq and how he used to live and what he was known for amongst his people. And of course, needless to say, the Imam alayhi salam was the compassionate, he was merciful, he had all of these good traits that he was known for. That's on the one hand. On the second hand, or from a second perspective, what's interesting is you need to understand, and we all need to understand, that the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, the Ma'sumin, did also get angry. And I think I mentioned or I discussed this in one of the presentations or lectures. The A'imma alayhim as-salam also do manifest anger in their qualities, but not for the same reasons that we get angry. Anger is a natural state. It's part of our makeup as a human being. Allah has given us the quality of anger, which means that in itself anger is good, but it can also be abused. It can be used for things which are bad. So when you come across the lines of Imam Ali alayhi salam, by the way, the A'imma alayhim salam, they get angry in affairs relating to deen and the tabligh of Islam. When they come across individuals who insistently they come towards the religion of Islam and they try and give interpretations to Islam, interpretations to the Sharia, interpretations to which is then associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is wrong, which was never meant to be in the first place, then they displayed their anger. Beautiful example that comes to mind is during the time of Imam Baqir alayhi salam. You see, one person came towards him and he said, Ka'ab al-Ahbar had said that every day the Kaaba, every day the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala performs sujood to Bayt al-Muqaddas. And the Imam alayhi salam says to him, he says, what do you have to say? He says, what Ka'ab al-Ahbar has said is the truth. And the Imam alayhi salam says to him, you've lied and so has Ka'ab al-Ahbar. He says, where did you get this interpretation from? Where did you get this hadith from that the Kaaba performs sujood towards Bayt al-Muqaddas every single day? So there were people who tried to influence their own understanding and thoughts within the religion of Islam. And this is where the A'imma alayhim salam really displayed their anger. When you look towards the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam, you come across the situation between him and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan tried very hard to reinterpret the religion of Islam. And the Imam manifests his anger towards Muawiyah because he had no right to interfere within the facets of Islam and the tabligh of Islam. Now coming back to the question, the Imams do display anger. Now when you come towards the enemies of the Imams alayhim salam, there are two types of enemies. There is the enemy that he hates the Imam, and the Imam had many who hated him. He was the one responsible for, killing the heads of the Quraysh in the battle of Badr and Uhud and Khandak, and so on and so forth. People used to hate Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. But then at the same time, they were not considered to be threats to him either. So they would go and they would contribute lies and they would say bad things about the Imam and so on and so forth. And the Imam knew that they were not a threat to him. They could go around and say anything they wanted. For example, within our communities today, if we have an enemy, that this person will do ghibah on us or tohma or whatever, they'll cook up lies against us. But then at the end of the day, they're not a threat to us. And then you have the enemy who is a threat to the Imam. So he actively engages in trying to assassinate the Imam or plotting against the Imam. Muawiyah being one of them. He was an active threat to the Imam alayhi salam. So when the Imam alayhi salam mentions these lines, Ya Allah, whoever acts evil against me, act evil against them. Whoever plots against me and plans against me, then plan against them. These are in reference to individuals who are actively trying to assassinate the Imam, those who are a threat to the Imam alayhi salam. And this is natural, to protect yourself from your enemies who are trying to kill you. Interestingly, if you refer to the ayahs of the Holy Quran, when Allah or the Quran speaks about the qualities of the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Quran says that he was the most merciful amongst the mu'mineen. Walakin he was considered to be ashudda ala al-kuffar. He was extremely severe towards the disbelievers. Disbelievers, what does that mean? Does that mean anyone who didn't accept Islam? So Rasulullah was extremely difficult and ashudda ala al-kuffar, really extreme against those who disbelieved in the message of Islam? No, it means the minority from his community who constantly, actively were plotting and planning against them. Those who were a threat to the Holy Prophet of Islam. And of course, in history, when you refer to the incident of Fath al-Makkah takes place towards, the conquest of Mecca takes place towards the end of the life of Rasulullah, sallallahu alaihi wa alih. Until then, those individuals who came towards the religion of Islam, they were a threat to Rasulullah because they were actively plotting against him. So when the Imam makes such statements, although these are very, very harsh statements, these are in reference to the very few minorities who were actively engaged in plotting and trying to kill the Imam alayhi salam, which is of course very, very much justifiable. We try and seek protection of Allah against our enemies who have hatred towards us to the extent that they want to get rid of us. Then we had a few questions with regards to the intention. I hope that answers the question, by the way. We had a few questions with regards to fasting. Is it permissible to travel in the state of during the month of Ramadan in the state of fasting? Okay, so interesting question. Yeah, it's permissible to travel in the state of fasting, or it's permissible to travel in the month of Ramadan. Even if a person wants to run away from fasting, he can do that. It's his choice. Of course, he won't get the thawab of the one who fasts during the month of Ramadan. Say, for example, a person doesn't want to fast and he wants to, skip a day, for example. He can go out and, travel, come back, and he's free to not fast for that day. But it's extremely makruh. It's considered to be detestable. It's permissible, but it's detested in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's an interesting discussion, and I hope no one in the community does that. That's not something that is advocated at all. But you can, of course, travel. If a person, for example, has planned their holidays not knowing that it was falling in the month of Ramadan and it's too late for him to cancel, just give an example. Of course, we can't travel in this circumstances. Then he can very much travel in the month of Ramadan. Of course, he won't be fasting when he travels, and it's part of the hukum, it's part of the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he can. There's no shari'i ruling telling us that it is haram to travel in the month of Ramadan. There was an incident a few years ago, actually. Very interesting incident where a group of mu'mineen in the month of Ramadan went to Iraq for ziyarah, and there was commotion in the community. They said, hold on a second, how can you travel in the month of Ramadan? And some people interpreted this as being haram. It's very important for us to speak when we have knowledge of these affairs. When we start guessing the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a very, very dangerous game to play. They said it's wajib for you to stay in the land and to fast. The idea behind this was traveling and going for ziyarah is mustahab, whereas fasting in the month of Ramadan is wajib. So why focus or why act on that which is mustahab and leave the wajib? When the Marj ad-Din was asked this question, is it permissible to come for the ziyarah of Abi Abdullah and Imam Ali alayhi salam in the month of Ramadan, or to stay in one's home and to fast? The Marja gave the answer. He said, Wallah, I don't know which one holds more merit, to stay home and to fast and to follow the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or to come for the ziyarah of the Imams in the month of Ramadan. Because the month of Ramadan is the month where our deeds are magnified. You're no longer getting the rewards that you would outside of the month of Ramadan. They are magnified, multiplied many times over. And he said, I don't know which one's higher. So it comes to show that yes, in the eyes of the marja, it's very much permissible to to travel in the month of Ramadan. There's a question with regards to the intention of fasting. How should the intention be done? Should I intend for an entire month or for individual days? It's a very interesting question. Of course, the choice is in your hands. The choice is in the hands of the mukallaf. You can choose to fast for the entire month. You can have the intention of fasting for the entire month of Ramadan before the days of Ramadan begin, or you could renew your intention every single day every night before the day begins. So you can make the intention for the following day And obviously that is perfectly fine. The choice is in your hands. Obviously it's more easier to make the intention for fasting for the entire month of Ramadan before the beginning of Ramadan. The intention, this is a very interesting discussion that I think we need to have. The intention is the affairs of the heart. It's not the affairs of the tongue. Sometimes we're accustomed to saying, today I'm fasting, wajib qurbatan ilallah. We've been brought up in this way. Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. The intention is the affair of the heart. If I'm thirsty, for example, all I have to do is take a sip. I don't have to make, for example, a formula. I don't have to recite a formula to say I'm now drinking water. Whenever I'm thirsty, that commitment to drink water, the act itself is a manifestation of my intention. So when I wake up, when I stand up for salah, for example, I don't need to formulate my words to say I'm now reciting salat al-isha 4 rak'at qurbatan ilallah. The fact that I've stood up alone is a manifestation of what's in my heart, the intention that's there in my heart. That was one issue. There's more with regards to the intention of fasting. It's a very, very important concept that we need to remind ourselves. Of course, it's there within the Islamic laws, the Islamic book of laws, but it's something that we need to remind ourselves because of how important it is. When the intention is made, the intention of fasting, specifically with regards to the month of Ramadan, is very, very strict. We have different types of fasting within the religion of Islam. We have the fasting which is wajib, we have fasting which is mustahab, we have fasting which is, for example, wajib, but it has more flexibility compared to the fasting of the month of Ramadan. So when you look at fasting that is prescribed in the month of Ramadan, the rulings of the intention for these fasts are very strict. They're rigid. They have no flexibility whatsoever. But the fasting which is considered to be wajib, but qada, for example, there's more flexibility given there. The fasting which is mustahab, there's much more flexibility there with regards to the intention of these fasts. The timing of the fast begins at the time of Fajr until the time of Maghrib. From Fajr till Maghrib, the mukallif, has to have the intention of fasting. Again, it's not the affair of the tongue, it's the affair of the heart. If you say to yourself, if you make the commitment that I'm going to stay away from all of the mufattirat, all of the things that make my fast batil, from the time of Fajr till the time of Maghrib, that is sufficient. Our actions is a manifestation of what's in our hearts. This intention has to exist from the first second of Salat from Fajr all the way to Maghrib. Every second, the intention has to be present. If there is any time between Fajr and Maghrib where my intention is broken, the fast is broken as well. Because it is a condition when it comes to fasting, it is a condition that the intention is there from the two time frames. If anywhere, for example, I make a commitment to myself that I'm hungry and I'm going to go break my fast, when I make the intention to break my fast, my intention of fasting is no longer there. Therefore, based on this, my fast has become batil because my intention has been broken. That is in the case when I actively make the decision to break my fast. Then there's the other scenario. The scenario is the scenario of hesitation. Very interesting. If I, for example, think about breaking my fast and I'm actually actively considering breaking my fast, that also breaks my fast. So, for example, let me give you a very simple example. Someone comes and presents you with some food, whether you're in university or work or wherever. And they've presented you with a particular plate of food. And now you're considering to yourself, you're saying to yourself, you know what, let me indulge in this. Maybe I shouldn't indulge in this. No, I'm fasting. Let me have some. No, I'm fasting. I shouldn't have some. You're now considering it. You're fighting yourself from within to whether you should go ahead and you should eat or not eat. It's just an example, by the way. This hesitation, you thinking about this, you're now 50-50. It breaks your fast because you're not committed in fasting between the two time frames. And the moment this hesitation comes forward, it automatically nullifies your fast, it makes your fast batil. There's a third issue, which is known as the issue of having the interest to eat. Also very interesting, some people ask questions with regards to this. They say, I have the interest, we develop an appetite when we're fasting. The worst time to go shopping is when a person is fasting, because you have the appetite for everything. When you sit down on the sufra for iftar, you have a few dates and already you feel full. So the worst time to shop is when you're in the state of fasting. When you're fasting, naturally you develop the appetite to eat certain food. Does this break the fast? No, it doesn't break the fast, because you're still committed in fasting. You've made the commitment of fasting. You've not made the decision to break your fast. There's a difference between the two. To have an appetite of food, it does not break the fast, because you are still committed in fasting. So there's a question with regards to, let me read the question. I see so many good people in the world who are not Muslim, and so many Muslims who may not seem like the best of people. How can we say the good non-Muslim will not enter heaven, or will be in a middle place, when their actions in this world may have always been in service of others? Can you explain more on this? Of course, when you refer to the Holy Quran, the Quran gives us a formula, the formula of success. And the Quran talks about this in so many different verses. The formula of success is of two components, Iman and Amal. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, mentioned within so many verses. And then and then those who do Amalun Salih, those who act out in good actions, those who do good and turn towards Allah, who are steadfast in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Both play a vital role in determining what success is in the hereafter. I, as a human being, I have the responsibility, number one, to develop Iman and to practice what I believe. Never should there be a case, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam mentions this in a very beautiful hadith. He says, there are two types of people who break my back: those who know but do not act, and those who act but they do not know. Both have equal responsibilities. We have to create a balance between the two. First of all, this is the first point. The second point is, let's not judge who will be successful in the hereafter and who will not be successful in the hereafter. The whole concept, this entire concept, is a very deep discussion. Requires many different sittings, in my opinion. But from the research that I've conducted, the humble research that I've read through, we can't jump to conclusions as to who will fail and who will pass in the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, and His mercy will shower upon everyone. Only a few rigid, very stubborn individuals will face the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will be disqualified from His infinite mercy. Of course, the idea of heaven is so vast. And again, this is a different discussion altogether, what exactly heaven is. Heaven has different levels and different stages. There are people who will reach the higher echelons of heavens. There are people who will reach the very low levels of heavens. Perhaps these people will reach a level which is suitable for them. Everyone will be tested. Everyone will be tried. Everyone will be the hisab of everyone will not be on the same level. Allah will give that individual what he deserves. I think that is the key point, something that we definitely need to keep in mind. Regardless of who the person is, Allah will treat them, judge them according to what they deserve. He will take all of the different facets in their lives, all of the different circumstances that they were in, what information they had access to, what information they didn't have access to, take their aql and their IQ into consideration, and He will judge them based on that. As far as where we are in this world, we can't make decisions or premature decisions for them at all. I hope that answers it. It's a very deep discussion. I don't want to go into the intricacies of it. We can perhaps leave that for a seminar or something, inshallah, in the future. There's a question with regards to, I think this will be the final question. There's a question with regards to the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Why do they break their fasts before us, especially in the month of Ramadan? The reason is because of the interpretations of the sources that we have. The ayah of the Holy Quran is very, very clear with regards to the timing of fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and fast until the night time, ila layl. The interpretation comes forward with regarding what exactly layl is. Layl can be interpreted as, or is interpreted as Maghrib. So as soon as the time of Maghrib starts, which is the descending of the sun, the setting of the sun, which is technically expressed by the word Maghrib, that is when Layl begins. And this is something that has been accepted by the ulama and amongst them the fuqaha as well. However, I think the best answer to the question I've come across is the examination between the ghaya and al-mughaya. It's a very interesting discussion. Let me explain what this means. When the lawmaker, in this case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he gives a particular set of laws and he sets a boundary, a time frame, or anything, he sets a boundary from point A to point B, this action must be done. So I need to start from point A and I need to finish point B. Is point B part of the action or is it outside of the action? When the limit is set, the end of the limit, is that part of the action or is it not considered to be part of the action? So for example, when you look at the ayah of wudu, before going into the ayah of wudu, let me give you a conventional example. Say I, as a traveler, if you ask me a question, have you been to Dubai? I say, yeah, I've been to Dubai. In reality, what's happened is I've traveled somewhere, but I had, for example, a 3-hour transit in Dubai. So technically, I was in Dubai, I was in the borders of Dubai. But does that consider me to be part of Dubai or not? So conventionally, the common understanding of the people is, no, I've not actually visited Dubai. I was there in transit for 3 hours, but that doesn't mean that I actually visited the city. What means to visit a city is that I go eat somewhere, I go see some friends, I stay a night, I do something before going on to my next destination. Staying in transit for 3 hours is not me visiting the city. Likewise, right now, if I go to London, for example, and I go to the boundaries of London and then come back, that's not me, I just visited London. Conventionally, this is how it's understood. So when you look at the ayah of wudu, and the same principle is applied according to the fuqaha and the ulama, the same principle is applied with regards to our ahkam. So when you look at, for example, the ayah of wudu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and wash your hands, فَاغْسِلُوا أَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, and wash your hands up to the elbow. Does that mean that the elbow is part of the act of washing my hands or no? So you found that the fuqaha said that when you wash your hands, make sure that you wash your hands just from above the elbow to make sure that the elbow is part of the act itself. Likewise, when it comes to fasting, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and fast until the layl, is it part of the act of fasting or is it outside the act of fasting? So based on all the examples we've given, the fuqaha say that, of course, there's a differences of opinions, and of course it's better if you refer to your marja, but majority of the fuqaha have this understanding that the layl is part of the fasting. So you should wait at least 5 or 10 minutes before you break your fast. And the best thing to do is, of course, pray salah, engage in salah before engaging in iftar. And that's why usually in our communities we wait 5-10 minutes until it's a bit more darker. The reason being is because Maghrib, Layl, which is technically known as Layl, is part of the fasting as well. Just precaution, wait a bit longer before breaking your fast. Not too long, but 5 or 10 minutes is perfectly fine. So we've just had a few questions. We'll leave that for next week, inshallah. Ahsantum. Actually, there were a few questions with regards to children and fasting. We'll leave that for tomorrow, inshallah. Tomorrow we have a session, second session, discussing the how we prepare or how to prepare for the month of Ramadan. We'll leave that for tomorrow, inshallah. If you have any questions with regards to fasting or the ahkam of Ramadan, please do feel free to ask. And inshallah, we'll discuss them tomorrow, inshallah. Of course, being a Thursday night, it necessitates that we remember Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, remembering the trials, remembering the sufferings of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. And this is, of course, something, a sunnah that has been developed by the A'immah alayhim salam, that has been adopted by the ulama, and something that has trickled within our communities. The Thursday night is the night of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. And tonight, allow us to remember how Imam Husayn alayhi salam used to deal with his children, and how the sacrifices the children made in the 10th of Muharram. Our hearts go out to the children of Karbala. Wallah, if it was not for the children of Karbala, Karbala would have not been remembered today. One of the reasons why Karbala is alive in our hearts is because of the young ones, because of the young Sukaina, because of the young Aliyun al-Akbar, because of Qasim, because of Abdullah, Awn and Muhammad. It's all of these bright, shining youths who gave their lives for Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. When you turn towards the history of Aliyun al-Akbar and what happened on the day of Ashura, they say he comes towards his father, and his father does not hesitate. He tells Aliyun al-Akbar, go and give your life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say when Aliyun al-Akbar, he goes and he fights valiantly. And of course he comes back and he has an interaction with his mother, and then he goes back to fight the enemies, and he kills hundreds from amongst them. And of course a time comes when the enemies begin to attack him. And they say, as the narration says, they came towards Aliyun al-Akbar and they began cutting him, and they began striking him with their swords, and they began attacking him bisuyufihim arban arba. They began cutting him into pieces. And when Aliyun al-Akbar falls onto the ground, when he falls, he calls out, Assalamu alayka ya abata. When Imam al-Husayn hears these words, he runs towards Aliyun al-Akbar. When he runs, he charges towards Aliyun al-Akbar. The narrations tell us that when he begins to charge, Sukaina, she turns to her father and she says, Ya Abata, where are you going? The cries of Aliyun al-Akbar are coming from this direction, but you're going towards that direction. Imam al-Husayn, he says, my dear daughter, do not blame me. The suns and the heat and the thirst is killing me. When he approaches Aliyun al-Akbar, Aliyun al-Akbar says to his father, he tells his father, my father, just as how you had told me, I see my grandfather on my right and I see my grandmother Az-Zahra on my left. According to some narrations, when Imam saw his son in such a state, he came and he places his cheek on the cheeks of Aliyun al-Akbar. According to some narrations, he placed his face on the face of Aliyun al-Akbar for such a long time that the enemies began celebrating, and they began saying, we've killed Husayn by killing his son Ali. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Surah al-Mubarakat al-Fatiha.